Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. Today's parent workshop will be on social emotional strategies at home with our Halta School District mental health therapist. So I'd like to introduce our therapists here at our district. We have Monica Gutierrez and Samantha Zaragoza. They are two of our therapists here that help us at most of our sites. Before we begin, a couple of housekeeping. We have a live Spanish translation going on, so if you want that translation, you can click on the description, and that will take you to the live Spanish translation for this forum. Also, we will be having live chats and live phone calls that you can join us. We'll let you know when we're going to be stopping for that, so you can welcome to call us in English or Spanish. For that, we would love to take your calls. So without further ado, we'll present it over to our mental health therapist.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Hello. I think we can start with the slides. All right. How to cope with difficult emotions during the upcoming season. My goodness, this has been a very difficult time for families in many different ways. And hopefully we'll give everybody some strategies to help kids navigate through this really unusual, stressful time. And challenges are, especially in the social emotional range, are nothing new for this school year. We have come through a lot of different challenges in the past, from things such as moves and school transitions, different things that happen in the family. We see how that manifests in kids' emotional health. Because of the pandemic, we have seen an increase in different mental health needs for both kids and adults. Things like the increase in stress, usually centered around fear and uncertainty. Anytime that there is something up in the air is the environment that we have now. We don't know when we're going back to school full-time in person. Some families don't know when parents are going to return to the workforce. Anything that's up in the air and uncertain creates an incredible amount of stress. So the more that we can do to help kids manage that frustration will definitely help with their mental health. There on that second bullet, the added frustration of having to spend a lot of time at home and without that interaction with peers and family members. That's an incredible stressful thing. Kids really rely on their peers, especially in the elementary, junior high, and absolutely during the high school years. So without that face-to-face contact, we have seen a very big increase in stressful things such as anxiety, and kids don't know how to cope with that. So hopefully we'll have some strategies here for you. There's also an emotional situation that's called the winter blues, and this is really common for both adults and kids, especially during this time of year. As the seasons change, we actually missed out on quite a few festivities this year, so I could see how the winter blues would affect us even more recently. And definitely it can worsen stress and anxiety. The combination of those restrictions that we've had, it's really important for us to understand what the kids are going through and how to help. So before we start this video, I do want to just mention we have a live chat going, so if you have questions, feel free to go on there and send us any questions or thoughts that you might have. Another thing too I wanted to mention about those festivities is the kids missed out on quite a few things this year, and this is going all the way back through March. We were really hopeful that by this time of the year we would have been back in person. So that huge letdown is a very big stressor for kids. So I just wanted to mention that as well, that we're not surprised that we're seeing an increase of behaviors and an increase of mental health needs at this time. So we have a video ready for you called "What Are the Winter Blues?"
The winter blues is indeed a real thing. It's something that we all feel to varying degrees, from quite mild, being a little annoyed at, oh, it's another storm, right to about 2 to 6% of the population, it's an actual severe form of depression. Hi, my name's Dr. Janine Hubbard. I'm a registered psychologist and communications director with the Association of Psychology, Newfoundland and Labrador. It's that lethargy, it's that not wanting to leave the house, it's increased sleeping, it's lack of interest in activities, it's craving comfort foods, particularly carbohydrates. It's irritability. All of those things contribute to us just not enjoying ourselves and not enjoying the season. And the longer the winter goes on and the harsher the winter it is for us, the more of us may feel those symptoms. And I think this is a year where things did. They started very early and we have not had much of a reprieve. And then there's the scientific end that says there's something about our lack of exposure to sunlight, our lack of exposure to vitamin D, which actually can mess around with some of the chemicals in our brain. It affects serotonin, which is kind of helps regulate our mood, and melatonin, which is what regulates our sleep. And we know that those changes in the amount of sunlight and vitamin D that we're getting can really affect us on a physical and a psychological level. And it's funny, there are a lot of people who are almost afraid to disclose it because they think that we're just going to minimize it and say, everybody feels the winter blahs, get over it. And again, to a certain extent, we all do. Now, we'd never just say, get over it. There are lots of things we can do proactively, so there is help available. I think what you need to do to approach the winter blues, or as winter approaches, is embrace it. No, listen, we know it's coming. So figure out, what have I struggled with in the past and how can I combat that in the future? So maybe you felt really housebound, especially during storms, for example. So perhaps you plan proactively and say, okay, the next time I'm housebound for a storm, I have a project in mind. Whether it's sorting out a closet, whether it's making something in the shed, whether it's, I've got some knitting that I want to pull out, or we're going to pull out a jigsaw puzzle for the whole family to work on. Plan for some really fun indoor activities. Pull out a project and something that's going to actively engage your brain, and at the same time, let yourself have a little bit of vegging out on the couch as well.
So as we saw, as the temperatures start dropping and the sunlight begins to wane, people, including our children, might exhibit some of the following symptoms. So these are things that we should probably look for within ourselves and in our children. So increased sadness, someone that more than usual is probably crying more. It may look like boredom, where they may be a little more isolated, staying in their room a lot longer. Their loss of interest in activities, things that they previously enjoyed. Like, for example, if they loved going to riding their bike, or they liked playing with their dog or with their cat, you may find them just kind of sitting around. They may be watching TV all day. They may be just not doing things that they regularly would do. Changes in appetite. They may be eating a lot less or a lot more. Changes in sleep. These are probably your children that either are sleeping way too much throughout the day and always are sleepy, or they're not sleeping enough. You may find them awake like at odd hours. Loss of energy, where a child may look, like I said, like they may look like they're bored all day. And so just kind of things to watch out for. Or increase in I can never say that word, irritability. So you may find them annoyed, angry, short to the point, where you may ask them a simple question and they may snap back, and it's something that is constantly that they're doing. So if you have any questions, or if there's anything that concerns, please feel free to call it in.
I want to mention as well on that increased irritability, that could look like every little thing you ask them, they just snap at you. And it doesn't feel good for them, and it certainly doesn't feel good for parents. So at times, kids do have disagreements with siblings and things like that. But if you notice, really commonplace things that you ask them to do are now huge arguments, we would attribute that to some of the winter blues. Being stuck in the house, normally in the winter because of rain and cold weather, and now it's coupled with the fact that they can't go see their family, or not seeing their friends, or having those get-togethers. We're not surprised that we have a really bad case of winter blues this year more than ever. I'm sure as time goes on, we will have millions of different studies about exactly how the pandemic affected everybody during this year.
Definitely.
I doubt it.
So just keep in mind, it's anything that the child wasn't doing before, and it's sudden and it's different. It's very common, especially because of right now, because of COVID, that they are going to watch more TV than usual. But it's things that they loved doing before that they're no longer doing, that they're avoiding completely. So we're going to,
Exactly.
this is the perfect time if you have any questions or concerns that you want to call in, please do.
Daniel's checking our computers, seeing if we have anybody to communicate.
So far, we don't have any in the chat. I know there's a little bit of delay, but you guys can also call in English and Spanish, and we'll definitely take your questions.
I am curious to see how many parents have noticed mental health changes in their kids. The changes in sleep and the appetite, change in appetite, it's really difficult right now. We're all at home, so I'm not sure if everybody else is experiencing this, but a table full of wrappers and the cabinets are devoid of snacks. There's nothing else to do at home, right? So I wouldn't be surprised. And the eating habits also going to the opposite, where they're not hungry. They don't want their favorite food. They only want fast food. Those are all really important symptoms to look for. The changes in sleep cracks me up because school used to start at 8 o'clock.
Right.
And now here most schools are starting after 9. So adjusting the bedtime routine for sure that's exactly what we had to do. We'll just wait a few more seconds, and if we don't have any questions, we'll move on. Have you noticed increased irritability in the classes?
Definitely. A lot more shorter. We have a lot of students asking when is class over. It's usually by 9:30 they're asking when is class over.
Yeah.
So we don't have any questions yet, so we can just move on, and if they have any questions, we can add it to the chat and we can answer them later.
Okay, that sounds
If
good.
anybody calls during, would you just let us know, or?
Yeah, I will take down the question, and then next time you guys stop, I'll share it with you guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Maybe this is a good time for us to share what we're noticing in the classrooms about winter blues. You said that you definitely see kids asking, when is this over? When can I be done with this and turn my computer off? Is there anything else that you can say is a change?
Definitely a lot less patience. I noticed that participation is really low. We're definitely asking more students to sit while they're in class versus staying in bed. We're definitely asking kids to dress appropriately like they would go to school, just to kind of get their mindset ready for school. We definitely have asked that they leave their camera on, because we have noticed, especially with the adolescent, if they leave their camera off, 7 out of 10 times they're not in class. And so they're playing video games, or they may be doing something else that is not helping them focus and staying in class.
Those are all really good. I am seeing a lot of that as well. Monica and I, we support different classrooms, so we get different glimpses about what's happening in our district. The other thing that I have to say that happens a lot is the disengagement, and what that looks like is boredom. So rather than looking at their screen or, really focusing on whatever work is in front of them, they might be staring off at what somebody's doing in the other room, which is really common. And it is, it's distractibility. It's also what happens when we're at home. But there is a concern when it's very difficult for them to refocus. And that's a huge expression of the sadness that they're feeling. They're irritated that they have to sit in front of this camera for a little while and get their work done on a computer. The eating habits too. I don't know about you, but I have so many students saying, I need to go to the kitchen, I have lunch, I have a snack. They're going back and forth pretty often, wanting something to nibble on to keep them focused. So yeah, and tired.
Yes.
I've never seen so many students tired before lunch, after lunch. That for sure is affecting them. If their brains aren't rested, we can't expect them to learn. Anything else you want to
So
add?
I just, we have a question from Lisa Espinosa. What can we do as teachers to help answer these questions when asked by parents? I would say definitely don't be afraid to share your thoughts as parents. Things that you're doing as a parent to support your child during this time. It's important just because as parents, sometimes we don't know what to do, and as parents, sometimes we kind of wonder if this is okay. So things that are definitely working at home for you, or things that you've heard other parents say that are working for them, feel free to share.
And we do have some strategies we will go over in just a few minutes. Yeah, I think so.
So here's another video on how to beat the winter blues.
I'm not sure why the audio is not working. The video.
The what, I'm sorry?
The audio.
Hold on. Trying to get out of it. Sorry, technical difficulties. How do I get out of here? Brandon, I'm stuck. How do I get out?
He's going to switch out.
Sorry, I know that you guys can't hear the audio. We're trying to work on that to get it fixed, so give us a moment.
There's another question too from Luis.
I was trying to read it, pero me taparon.
Okay, press play.
Depressed. Turn on music. Listening to upbeat and cheery music can improve your mood. Go for a walk outside. Spending time outside can lower stress and improve focus. Plan a vacation. The act of planning a trip and thinking about the warmer days increases overall happiness. After December 21st, the darkest day of the year, start smiling because more daylight is on its way. Here's 5 ways to get rid of the winter blues. Soak in as much daylight as possible.
There we go. So just to recap, and hopefully this answers your question, Elise. If not, please let us know and we can try to clarify. So when we have the winter blues and we're feeling that slight depression that's more towards like the season, it's usually that we need to get out more, get some fresh air, go for a walk, do any type of movement, whether it's gardening, playing with your dog, riding your bike, anything just to get your body, your endorphins moving and just kind of feeling like there's more than just sitting on the couch. You definitely want to make sure that your mind is activated, reading, even sitting outside drinking your coffee, or having lunch, or going outside and looking at the stars. You definitely want to kind of move away from just sitting around. And you definitely want to have that movement, because once you're moving around and doing things like walking, running, riding your bike, your body naturally gets tired, so that means that you're actually going to sleep well versus kind of sleeping and waking up and not going to bed. Having that daily routine is very important. You want to wake up around the same time. You want to go to bed around the same time. You want to have high protein meals, healthy vegetables. You want to avoid processed foods. You want to avoid carbohydrate foods like chips, candy, high sugar foods, because as we know, when we eat them, we go up in a high and then we crash. And so for a lot of these, our kids, that when they have a lot of that processed food and they're eating it all day, they're not getting the nutrients for their brain to kind of just have them, keep that stimulation for them to keep thinking about what they need to be doing, especially like focusing at school, reading, math, writing, things that, you know, take up a lot of our concentration. It's very important just to have that routine. So always keep in mind that when we have a routine at home, like just like we have it at school, the kids know what to expect and what's going to happen.
That's really good. Thank you for sharing that. That was an interesting video. If you guys noticed, a lot of those strategies have to do with sensory issues, sensory needs of some kind. Eat good food, like go outside and smell like, you know, fresh grass, and connect with the outdoors. Make sure that you're watching things that are quality. Don't just keep watching videos, but encourage the students to watch things that stimulate their minds. For sure, physical touch. Get hugs if you need it. All of those things reconnect our brain in a way that we can then sort of feel better about the world and move forward. So a few of the strategies that we can do to help kids during this time, for sure that routine, that's the second thing on this slide. A routine is vitally important. We can't stress that enough. Even if bedtime means it's later because school starts later, that's okay. But having a general idea about when they're expected to go to bed is critical. We have a lot of students that are not going to sleep until 1, 2, 3 in the morning, and then they're expected to wake up at 8:45, run over to their computer, and have their minds awake and ready to learn. Oftentimes the kids aren't eating breakfast before they walk over to the computer. And having that morning routine is really crucial. When things are up in the air, as they are now, kids innately have a sense of anxiety about what's going to happen, and it creates stress, not only for kids, I mean also for adults, right? Let's be honest, we're feeling it too. So the way that we can help them is create a routine. if they have that anchor of a routine, which is one thing they can count on, they know they're getting up on a certain time, they know they get released from school for lunch at a certain time, they know when school is over, and they know when bedtime is coming, there's a much more a sense of calm. Kids want to know what's happening, what's coming up. So that's really helpful.
And it's good to have that expectation of what they're supposed to know. So like getting dressed, even if they wake up at 8:45, we're finding that a lot of kids will just bring their computer to bed and they will lay down. And so they're not really focused and they're not really paying attention. And so having them actually get out of bed, getting dressed, brushing their teeth, washing their face, sitting down, and actually doing the classroom work, it makes a huge difference.
That's really good. And if this is a lot to remember, having a family set up a visual schedule of what to do in the morning is really nice to do too. You don't have to keep being the nag. You can post it on the bathroom wall or somewhere that the kid can access easily, the student can access, and they can see, oh right, I woke up, my mind is foggy, I need to change my clothes, wash my face, grab some breakfast really quickly, and then sit down at whatever time school starts, 9 o'clock. And that way they can transition, as the slide is pointing out here, they can transition into schoolwork. It's really difficult for kids to learn if they're tired and hungry and they haven't had a firm transition to school. It makes me think back to when we were in person. We had a very firm transition. Kids would wake up, obviously, get dressed, get their things together, their supplies. They'd have a short little drive to school or a bus trip. When they got to school, they had a few minutes of playtime, and then it was time to transition to schoolwork.
And if they missed breakfast, breakfast was offered at school, so they would be able to eat.
Exactly. And also a routine around what they call it school hygiene or learning hygiene, which is not having the computer in bed, not laying down on the couch to get schoolwork done. I don't know how kids are going to type or pay attention to a lesson or a video if they're turned sideways laying on the couch. This is really important things for them to know the expectation of sitting somewhere where they can access the computer and the mouse and all of that. So definitely that would, I think if we could, I would make that one be a lot bigger in font, be the entire slide, a routine. Not only does it set them up so that their brains can work, it also creates normalcy and relieves anxiety about all of the pandemic, the issues about school during the pandemic. So for sure, we want to stress that one. Let's go back for a second.
Sorry.
That's okay. Lunch, chores, exercise, online social times with friends, and homework. These are another way for you to increase the learning environment. Exercise, I don't know how many kids are getting exercise right now. I have seen there is PE in some of the classes, but not in all. There are really fun and easy ways that you can encourage your students to get outside and get the chemicals going in the brain. Having them do 10 jumping jacks, run to the fence and back. Have them
Even doing a dance party where they just turn on the music super loud and they just dance it out.
That's a
You
good
know,
one too. That's a good one too. And then it's also incorporating music. Again, if we want to help kids calm, get their brains ready to move, use the senses. Turn on the music, get their bodies moving. And homework time in the afternoon, nobody likes homework time, but it is another way for them to transition back into school mode and keep going with the learning. And homework can be something simple. While you're doing dinner, quiz them on their spelling words or go over multiplication facts. Things like that are another way to keep the learning going throughout the whole day. The next one, family time and reading before bed. Again, transition into school. We also need to help them transition to bed and get the good rest that their brains need. There was a study years ago that if kids lose 1 hour of sleep, their brain function actually gets chopped in half. And we need every ounce of learning that we can possibly give our students right now. So the more rest they can get, the better. And family time is critical. They're missing out on friends. They're not able to have these big family gatherings. Let's give them that family bond that they really need at this time. create excitement around activities for the following day. One of our coworkers had a great story about her little one who he needed something on the schedule because he wants something to look forward to. I think we can all appreciate that. We don't have to just be little kids to really have an excitement about what we're doing tomorrow. In the pandemic, we're getting excited about going to Target, and that's okay. Having something to look forward to gives kids a sense that it's not Groundhog Day. There's something different tomorrow. And planning things is really helpful for their mental health.
It could even be just, we're gonna go walk to the park and we're gonna look at the stars outside. It doesn't have to physically leave your house if you're not comfortable doing it, but finding things around your home that requires you leaving your house, actually going outside, getting some fresh air, some sunlight, or looking at the stars in the evening. Just anything that have movement. Always think about movement.
That's really good. And there's a million different ways that we can do this, right? One of the other more critical ways that we can help our students is to give them opportunities to discuss, talk about their feelings. We are not making it worse. Teachers and parents are not making it worse when you're asking them, what are you stressed about today? And if they're missing their friends, having them switch to a problem-solving mode, how could we show our friends that we miss them? That is way more sort of motivating for a student than to just sit with that sadness on their own. So if they're missing friends, draw a picture, write a note, see if you can drop it off, hold it up during class time when they do their sharing. So as much as we can, talking with them about what's bumming you out today is another way for them to release that stress and feel that the adults really understand and hear them. Anything you want to mention on that one? A lot of the times I found that kids are upset about not seeing each other, not being in school. And once they're able to say something about it, you can almost see their body language change. Like, whew, I got that off. Yeah, that's really helpful for them. All right, this is just a sample calendar. It's nothing to get really worried about. I can't imagine any of us have a calendar like that right now, but it's just to give you an idea about maybe a thought about how you can structure your week and your month. Plan something every Friday or Saturday. Have a walk every Saturday morning as a family. Go out for ice cream if they've had a really great week at school, or maybe on Sunday night to get them motivated for a good week.
And it doesn't have to be this fancy or compact. You can do it week by week, every three days. Just something so you and your family can get together and have an idea, okay, Monday we're doing this, Tuesday is this, and Wednesday is this. And it's okay to, if you find something fun at the last moment, to say, okay, we're gonna switch things around, and that's perfectly okay. It's more of a visual, so that way your children can see, okay, we have things that we can look forward to. It's just, even if it's going to get Baskin Robbins and you get your ice cream and you come home and you eat it outside. Or if it's, you're gonna go for a walk, pick up your Baskin Robbins and you're gonna walk. It's just anything that's gonna have the kids, something more visual for them to look forward to.
Exactly. And there are lots of local ideas for your family. There are virtual things, like on the right-hand side there, the virtual paint night. There's lots of different ones there. I couldn't even list all of the different paint nights that they had. You can use crayon or pencil, and they're free. Winter dance party. Checking out those Facebook events, if you have access to Facebook, looking at the bottom on those events, there were so many different ones. We could have probably put a million different slides of things that you can do right now in your home that are on Facebook events. You hit join, it'll give you a reminder. On the left-hand side there are different things that you can look at online. A winter bird tutorial, which you can follow along and see, depending on a kid's interest. Things like that they have, if they have a real interest in something, Google it, see what you can find, and make it a family event, something that you guys can build upon.
And these are just more activities that you can look at. So the library has story time, and it's online where they'll read your book, and they even do borrowing online where you can log in and you can borrow books. And they have the living history in San Bautista where you can kind of just look around, look at, not everything is fully open because we're obviously closed. The state is closed, but you can definitely look at the stables, you can definitely just kind of walk around, look at the mission. And then Gilbert's, they have the farmer's market every Saturdays. Definitely buy your fruits and vegetables and kind of have an outing. And then we have virtual, what is it, the aquarium and the zoo, where you can just kind of log in and do a virtual tour.
And both of those have live cams of the actual animals. So if you have somebody who adores the otters at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, there's a live camera right now that you can click on. It's just off of the Monterey Bay Aquarium website. Same with the San Diego Zoo. If they want to see Sunny Slope tigers, right? We have to see the tigers. You can click on that and see what the tigers are up to, or the Serra Vista sharks. Definitely ways for you guys to really explore with your children and foster those interests. If they really enjoy something, look it up. Let's see what we can do about having these family events together. Oh, I see another question. Can you give us some examples of things we can say to our kids to help engage them in discussions or help them feel assured and supported? Do you want to take this one? Or do you want me to go?
I would say definitely don't be afraid. Like we said, don't ever be afraid to just kind of tell them what you think. So if it's something that they just, every child is different, and so you know your child better than we obviously do. And so helping them feel motivated, if it's that they have to type questions in the chat, if, you know, having that communication with the teacher where you and the teacher can say, okay, my child really struggles in this area, what is the best way that they can answer the questions? Some of the teachers that I've spoken to will give the students a number where they can kind of say 3, 4, 5, and that's what they understand in the lesson plan. And so again, it just depends how comfortable the student is to say whether, yes, I got it, I'm not too sure, or 3, no, not really. And utilizing that teacher time that the teachers have set aside for them to meet with them, please use it. You know, that's that one-on-one time that your child can actually meet with the teacher, get those questions to feel supported, to feel answered. And you know, as parents, you don't always know everything. I mean, I can tell you when I try to help some of the 5th graders with their math, I'm clueless. I'm like, I have no clue what you're doing. And so, and myself, I even have to go to the teacher and be like, okay, how does he do this? Or what am I looking for? But it's modeling that for your child, that it's okay to not know. It's okay to ask for help. And a lot of it is that we're in the world that we have to know everything, and we have to know it quick, and we have to be fast about it. You know, it's okay. We have to model not knowing. We have to model that uncertainty of just saying, you know, let's find out together. Let's ask together. And you might have to just raise your hand and speak for your child so he can see what that looks like, or she can see what that looks like.
That's really good. Some good ideas there for sure. Some other things that we can do for kids to help them engage them in discussion around these things is to take a non-judgmental stance. Not that we are trying to judge, but when we try to minimize the effects that the pandemic is having on our students, it makes them feel like it's not a topic that's open for discussion. For instance, if you say, you know, the student is really worried about not seeing his friend and is really concerned. To that student, it's not this big. To a parent it is, right? It's, oh, well, you'll see them again, and it's not that big of a deal. Everybody's feeling this. To that student, this little tiny problem is their whole world. So rather than minimize what they're feeling, say, tell me what you miss. What can we do about that? How can we remind our friend that we think about them and care about them? I had one student really upset because he missed his lunch lady, which is such a sweet thing. But I mean, we connect it, right? Emotions and food go hand in hand. And he was really upset. I miss my lunch lady. She would check in with me every day. I would see her, she knew exactly that I wanted the chocolate milk or something like that. To an adult, that's such a small thing, but to a student, it's their whole world. So rather than say, you'll see them again, we can say, tell me about this lunch lady. What was your favorite thing about her? What was her name? Do you want to draw a picture about this lunch lady? We will make sure she gets it. We can mail it to the school or drop it off on our next walk. And that way we can really feel, we can help the kids feel heard and understood. And like I said, this is their whole world. Their school is such a big part of their lives. What are some other examples that we can say to help them feel assured and supported? I think so. And no poor baby stuff. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for you. These kids are learning. Even though they aren't learning the same as they would in a classroom, they're learning how to be tech geniuses. They are learning how to be resilient. I saw a student complete an assignment on the back of a cereal box because he couldn't find paper. These students are learning how to type at incredible speed, and they're really resilient. I think we have to give them credit for that. Assured and supported, give them time to talk. If we can, teachers, bring it up in your morning meeting. What is something that is bumming you out today? And that way kids can feel heard. Yeah. I can't think of anything else.
No.
I hope that helps, Miss Elizabeth.
Like Samantha said, validate.
Exactly. Very good. Is there
We don't have any other questions, but feel free again to call in or place your question in the chats. Again, you can do them in English or Spanish. Samantha and Monica, as we wait for people to type in their questions, what are some of the questions you're getting from parents normally when you at the school sites?
A lot of what we're getting is stemming around, a lot for me, I should say, is stemming around routine. How do I get my student to go to bed on time? How do I get them to finish their work? There's a lot of questions around routine, and I can't stress enough having just a general idea of a schedule for the day. A lot of worry and anxiety and stress goes away when the students have a clear-cut next thing to do. For instance, I had one student that was really struggling with getting up in the morning, and we found out it's because he's not a morning person. And so rather than stress that issue and make him wake up even earlier, she laid out very clearly for him what she expected him to do in the morning. And he had to get up at a certain time, he had to eat something, and in fact, his parent didn't care if he changed out of his PJs. We're picking our battles, right? And what we found is that he was relying on that schedule, and it alleviated his stress to the point when he had to sit down in front of his computer, he was ready to work. So it was less of a struggle because he knew the expectation and consequences. I know that's an awful word. Nobody wants to hear consequences, but there has to be a consequence if you're asking for a certain expectation and they're not following through. Video games are a huge motivator. Let's use that appropriately. If your student loves Fortnite, awesome. Have them make sure they sign in, follow the schedule, and at the end of the day, they get their video game controller. And that way you're motivating them to earn the video games rather than say, oh, now you can't have it, now you can't have it. Setting them up for success from the beginning will help them be motivated all day. So I hope that helps.
There's definitely a lot of questions about structure, routine. I think a lot more questions that I get because of my adolescence are the camera, having the camera on or having the camera off. And so I am a big component. I do believe that the camera should be on, even if it's from here up, just because of my experience is that when I meet with a student and we're talking and I find out, oh, well, you're getting an F in this class and this is your favorite class, I'm not understanding. It's because they're playing video games during class time. Or it's because they decided that, they walked by to get a snack and they got stuck watching TV, so they didn't make it back to class. And so they were missing huge parts of their assignments because they weren't in class and they didn't know what was happening. And so I have told parents, if they can leave the camera on from here up, at least we know that their head is there, and then we know that they're there, and so the teacher can see if they're not there. And so that actually did help a lot of the students feel like, okay, they can see me. So when they would leave the classroom for whatever reason, go to the restroom, get a snack, they would type it in the chat, okay, I'll be right back. And that would hold them responsible to have to come back.
That's really good. The sleep issue has been big for me too. I was thinking of another student that was not going to bed until 11 or 12, but he was able to get up in the morning. And every student is so different, and having that arrangement, we were able to sit down with parent and student, and they collaboratively decided, as long as he gets up when he's supposed to, he's rested, he's able to engage in school, as long as he goes to bed by 10:30, both sides were happy. We aren't using as much energy as we have in the past. We're not expecting, them to run miles or go to baseball practice and football practice. So we're not surprised to see their energy levels are lower. So I would say set an expectation, stick with it, use any motivators you have to hold them to that expectation. And hopefully the kids will get buy-in. We want them to succeed and do well in school. And part of that has to do with making sure their brains are in a space to learn.
Okay.
Is there any other questions that you're getting from parents?
No, routine, like you said, and the camera debate.
The great camera debate.
Mm-hmm.
I have had parents ask, how can we connect with students together? And I'll just touch on it for a second. Video games right now are students linked to their friends, so we don't want to take it away completely. If there's a way that they can earn that time, that's the best use, I think, for video games. If you think about what they're doing, they're talking to their friends, even though they're on a screen, they are still communicating.
They're having that social interaction that they're missing at school.
They are, so let's use that as fuel for us to get them academically poised and then get that social, the benefit of it afterwards.
And you as a parent can decide however long time, whatever time limit you want to give them.
That would be a good idea as well, to have some sort of a limit. Too much video game is not good for anybody. Oh, great, and we answered the last question. Perfect, I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, so we don't have any new questions. Just a last comment from Mrs. Blevins. Thank you, Ms. Blevins, for that.
Well, I think that's great. We covered a lot. I hope we gave everybody really good ideas and thoughts about how we can manage a student's mental health needs during this pandemic, especially with the winter blues. We're right in the middle of it. Being understanding, giving kids the opportunity to share and vent and maybe do a little bit of problem solving. For sure, let's set up a routine for our students. Even if it's a little bit looser than it has been in the past, kids need that structure in order to know what's coming up and what can I look forward to. That will alleviate anxiety and stress. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, just remember, keep them on a schedule as much as possible, whatever that looks like for your home. It's perfect. Just something that they can look forward to, give them some outside time, make sure there's some physical activity, healthy meals. And remember, the school does provide meals, and so please, you come by, pick up your breakfast and your lunch, and keep your kids nice and fed.
The lunch ladies will be happy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.